So welcome everyone, and today we're going to talk about the joy of creating. If you've ever created something beautiful, anything, no matter what it is, if you do anything, paint anything creative or write something, there's sometimes an experience when you really let it flow, like it's flowing through you. It's just coming. It's not something you're creating on your own, right? It's not coming from your mind because when we create from our mind, it's so limited, right? Because we can only use the information that we have in our minds already. In other words, information that we've collected from someone else, from something else, from the past, right? And so it's so limited. It's nothing fresh, nothing new. So it can just reorganize that stuff in a creative way, right? That's what our mind does when we create from our mind. And if you've ever seen something like that, maybe someone who's very intellectual, memorizes stuff, and very intelligent, right, can create something new. But there's an energy to something created when get the mind out of the way, and it's beautiful, like Van Gogh, or someone very, very original, right? Some beautiful music is like that. You could just feel, there's something about the energy of it. Okay, and that's what we're talking about when I'm talking about the joy of creating, because it's a feeling, it's something that's felt, something that flows through you, not something to think about, okay? And what happens is, sometimes, have you ever had an idea for music, for example? Say a song idea comes to you in your head, or a melody, or a poem, some words, something, then immediately the mind starts judging it, right? And once that happens, it cuts the flow off. That energy stops flowing, right? So the first thing to do that's very important is decide you're not going to judge anything that you do, anything that comes through. You judge yourself at all, in any way, because that stops the flow of creativity. That stops the flow of joy, right? Kids, if you tell a kid, oh, that's wrong, that's bad, they stop immediately their joy, right? So you have to let that flow, just like a kid, the way they're happy, the way they're joyful, creative. They're not worried about what they're going to do with the thing once it's done. They're just focused on the joy of creating. So there's such a joy and complete happiness that comes in the process of creating. And once you learn to let that flow freely, then you do the creating for the sake of the creating. In other words, you're not creating and worried about what you're going to do with that thing, that song, where it's going to go, what's going to happen to it. It's just the joy of creating it. In other words, it really doesn't matter if it gets out to anybody at all, although that's another part of the joy. But the most joyful thing is just the creation of it, right? And then you're creating for creation's sake, okay? And it's similar to, if you look at nature, right? It's letting go of the fruits of our actions, just like a tree. Right? I love that example. If you look at a tree grows fruit, right? And it nurtures it while it's growing. There's joy and life in that creation of the fruit. And that's the only time it holds on to it. The only time the tree has the fruit is while it's growing. As soon as it's done growing and it's ripe, it falls off. The tree lets it go, right? And it doesn't have any concern with that anymore. It's put everything into it. It's let the energy flow into the fruit. And then the fruit's gone, and the fruit has a life of its own. Then it continues on its own, right? Whatever's supposed to happen, that happens to it. It could get eaten by a squirrel. It can go somewhere else. It can be destroyed or ruined. It can wash away, or it can go in the ground and it can begin to grow a new tree. So what is the point of getting really good at an instrument then, like honing your skills, these kind of practice, right? Because you can say that's collecting information. But what it is this creative energy wants to flow through us, right? There's joy in that. But if you look at a child, they don't have the skill to allow the creative energy to flow through in a new way, in a fresh way, or in a skilled way, right? So what you're doing by honing your skills, and you're just creating mechanical actions, right? So I'm playing this over and over again until it gets good at it, or I sing over and over again until my throat opens. And what it does is it creates more possibilities for this instrument, this body, right, to create in different and new ways. Because before that, it doesn't exist. So just like an athlete, right, when they create new things and break records and all these things, they have to practice for that. But the actual breaking of the record is a beautiful creation. It's an expression of joy, of energy, right? And it's brand new. It's creative. If you've ever created something beautiful or anything's flowed through you in this way, you felt it flow through you, then you know the experience of not feeling like it's yours, right? Of course, the mind, what happens is it flows through, like it's like you have a new idea, a great idea, like a light bulb goes off, right? The light bulb goes off, that comes on its own. And then right afterwards, we grab it and say like, oh, I thought of that. I thought of that. Which is funny because actually, if you have the experience of that, then you know that when the idea comes through, the fresh idea, your part of you is almost as surprised as anyone else would be of that idea, right? So you look at that and part of you says like, wow, what a great idea. So that part of you that says, wow, what a great idea, is not the part that thought of the idea, right? And it's the same thing, like writing a poem. It happens for me with poems a lot, is that I get one line, one rhyming line, and then I just repeat that in my mind, and another one comes, another one comes, another one comes, and I don't have an idea about what the poem's going to be about, right? The beginning and where it's going to end, but it just concludes perfectly. So that's not me. Right? There's no way I could think of that with my mind. There's no way I could plan that out. But because it just comes, there's so much joy in that flow of energy, like when that's happening, that's the thing that is most wonderful about creating, right? So not the result, because it's actually boring to look at the poem again afterwards, right? Because I look at it and go like, oh, that's a good poem. But the part that's creating, the process of creation is alive. Right? It's new, it's fresh, it's happening at the moment. Once it's done, then it's like the fruit, you know? I don't know what's going to happen with it, but whatever does happen, that's wonderful, you know? You can take it to the market and sell it if you want to. Or you can just let it sit there, right? But the creation happened. So what I'm saying in essence is create for creation's sake, right? And in this, if you don't judge it, if you let go of the judgment and allow it to flow, that's one of the most important skills to hone, because it doesn't matter how good you are at first, still you can let that come through in freshness, and you may come with ideas that later you'll come back and just be amazed at how original and creative it was, because that energy is always fresh. There's a lot of guitar players, a lot of singers that are just focused on mechanics, right? They're a technically amazing singer, but you could feel there's no life in it. There's no energy, there's no joy. They're not enjoying it. And without that, it's technically good, right? But there's no feeling in it. It's like the difference between reading a technical article about something, a factual article, and someone who's passionate about it, someone who experienced it, right? There's a big difference. Or reading an article about something factual and a poem, right? Full of like emotion and joy, right? And it's the difference between those two things. You see the same thing with guitar players. There's a lot of guitar players who can go really super fast, blindingly fast and great, but you don't feel what they're playing because it doesn't have that emotion, that joy in it, right? And then a guitar player who cannot not have so many notes. They don't play so many notes, but the notes they play are coming from their soul. You could feel it, right? They're full of joy. You could see they enjoy it. There could be no one in the room. There could be 20,000 people watching them, or there could be no one, and they're the same, right? Carlos Santana plays like that, right? Watch him, okay? So thank you for joining me for this video today. I hope that's brought some clarity, and I really hope you can understand that it's really allow yourself to create without judging what you're creating. Just let it come out first without judging it, and then see what came out. Right? Let it flow first, because it doesn't matter. Even if you have, it's practicing, you look at yourself as practicing allowing yourself to create, practicing allowing the creation to come through you freely, and freshness, originality to come. And look at that as a skill, just like practicing guitar, just like singing, and allowing that to flow through freshly. And don't judge it. See, look at it as practice. Look at it afterwards, because there will be plenty of stuff that you create that's not so great that you might get rid of or put on the side or whatever. But there's stuff that will come through that's amazing, right? Every band, every songwriter, every creator has probably, every painter probably has hundreds of paintings that they never put out or sold. They probably have, songwriters probably have hundreds of songs. I'm sure Michael Jackson has hundreds of songs that he never finished, right? Never put out. So many people, the Beatles, okay? So don't look at it as pass or fail. It's really important to, it can always flow into something else. Maybe when you later acquire different skills this body's capable of expressing in a newer, fresh, more expanded way, then you may be able to go back to that thing, get an inspiration, and it just continues and comes, okay? So I hope this has helped you in some way. And if you have any questions or any comments, I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, take care.